T Nation. Hopefully, everybody is having a wonderful Sunday morning here at NBT Studios, NBT headquarters. Super excited to be reconnecting with NBT Nation. Been traveling, been in the classroom, delivering some training of various different types, and then a little quick turnaround and then back out on the road visiting different parts of NBT Nation. But wanted to touch base on this continuing series. How do we get more effective training? How do we become no boring trainers? If you're new to corporate training, if you're asked to deliver a training and don't even know where to start, if you're a small firm and you've got some people who deliver training, but you don't know how to graduate to that next level. That's what we're here to unpack as part of the hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer series. I'm Adam Spack, certified no boring trainer. Let's dive in. Great to have everyone with us. Let me get my screen set up here. Super excited as we continue to explore. And if you find corporate training and more importantly, getting big business results because of the effective training in your organization, be sure to follow, like, comment, subscribe, all of the things, right? So let's us dive in. I can start getting this all set up. I promise NBT Nation I'm going to get this set up in the future so it's a little bit more seamless, one step at a time. So we are talking about, have been talking about, the hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer. And if you've missed the previous 8 hard truths, I invite you to look at the previous 2 lives. There I unpacked hard truths 1 through 4, hard truths 5 through 8. So today we're looking at the next series of hard truths, and this is really starting to dip our toe in more of the strategic learning bucket. Even if you're a frontline trainer and you're not even thinking about top line metrics and how do we improve the revenue across the organization and how do we drive organizational change and how do we increase the overall efficiency and drive our profit margins? How do we increase the retention of our top line talent through effective learning and ongoing development and blah, 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 leadership, all of the leadership training, all those different things? Even if you're not thinking about all that because you're in the trenches every day, these next hard truths are going to help you start thinking in that direction. They're going to start separating you from just the, hey, I got a curriculum, I teach the curriculum, end of story. It's going to separate you from that approach, and it's going to help you develop. It's going to help you plan, build, and deliver way more interesting trainings, way more interesting, way more effective, way more engaging. And my friends, it's going to set you up to be more of in a leadership role, learning leadership, where you can start to work with the C-suite and partner with those big leaders across your organization to really drive towards business results. These 4 hard truths point you in that direction. But like I said, even if you're not interested in all that, move the organization, impact, top line revenue, talent retention, even if you're not interested in all that, understanding these 4 truths will absolutely help you be a far more effective trainer. So let's dive in with these 4 hard truths. Hopefully everybody is having a great Sunday. It's a little bit windy here in Mississippi, USA. In fact, it's a lot windy. So if I just randomly disappear in the middle of the stream, you'll know what happened. So let's dive in. Hard truth number 9. Not all learning, not all training needs to be instructor-led classroom style. Not all training needs to be instructor-led classroom style. That's something I really wish I would have learned earlier in my training career. I wish I would have really grasped that there's a load of different ways to get knowledge out into the organization. And I think this hard truth really hits on 2 areas. One is thinking about all of those different ways you can deliver learning and knowledge and help fuel development other than the instructor-led classroom model, which is if you're a subject matter expert, if you don't train all that often, if you just get that random tap on the shoulder, that's what people kind of tend to default to. But what about virtual sessions? What about e-learning modules? What about explainer video libraries? What about using a tool like Scribe? I'm not affiliated with them to create a really great set of work instructions. What about SharePoint and podcasts and structured shadowing, utilizing your team huddles in a far more effective way? Putting a series of blog posts out into your organization. There's a gazillion different ways to deliver knowledge, and really understanding that just because you have to train somebody doesn't mean pulling everybody offline and heading to the classroom, heading to the conference room. There's a million other ways to do it. This is going to avoid impacting operations. It's going to avoid taking people away from their day job, which impacts operations. It's going to open your mind a little bit to how do we deliver this knowledge in a way that doesn't stop the day-to-day business of the organization or doesn't impact that. I think it also speaks to the idea of not just defaulting to whatever delivery style makes that you prefer. The words on the screen say not all training needs to be instructor-led classroom style, but it could refer to anything. Not all training needs to be virtual if your kind of go-to method is virtual. Not all training needs to be e-learning if your go-to method in your organization is e-learning. So I think this hard truth really speaks to a couple different things. How do we deliver learning in the way that's going to be the most effective to the learner? How do we mix up those styles and build really a layered learning approach, going back to hard truth number 5? How do we spread that learning out through a whole bunch of different delivery methods? And how do we do that in such a way that it doesn't impact operations? We do that in the most efficient and economical way possible. That's really what this hard truth is driving at. That's going to help kind of get your toe a little bit in that learning leadership arena. Because I can assure you, when you start presenting solutions back to people saying, hey, we need a training, and you present back, hey, I don't want to shut down your team's day-to-day operations and have to bring everybody in on the weekend and pay them overtime. Hey, I don't want to pull the whole shift offline. So here's a way we can do the learning and training that you need. When you start talking like that, your stakeholders are going to go, okay, cool. It's also going to make your training far more interesting and effective because you'll be a little bit more creative in how you deliver the training. And like I say, if you think about all the different delivery mechanisms, you're just not always going back to the way you always do it, which after a while your organization gets used to and frankly can become boring. Not all training needs to be instructor-led classroom style. That is hard truth number 9. And really learning and adopting that can really pay big dividends inside the organization. If you're following along out there on the different platforms this is streaming to, I encourage you, please leave me a chat, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about these hard truths as you hear them. If you've ever experienced a boring training, let me know that. And if you've ever thought to yourself, man, we really could level up how we do training inside this organization, how we use learning as a strategic tool to become that taproot of excellence, energy, and alignment inside the organization, that taproot to drive the strategy and culture forwards. If you've ever thought, hey, we could do a better job of this, again, leave me a chat. Let me know what part of the world you're in and what you're thinking, or just respond to today's topic. So, hard truth number 10, if leadership doesn't support training, it will be a waste of time. And boy, have I learned that the hard way over the years. If leadership doesn't support training, it will be a waste of time. Here's the scenario. You come up with a great idea for a training. Maybe it's an explainer video. And you put in 3 or 4 hours scripting it, recording it, editing it, building all the collateral to go around it, hosting it somewhere, publishing it, writing the communication, all the things. You send it out into the universe, and your hope is the frontline users get a hold of it and go, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever. And you make their lives easier. They work, they perform better. They start doing this, they stop doing this, they work at a higher level, whatever. If their frontline manager says, no, Don't do it that way. Do it this way. Your training is now null and void. It's wasted. If that frontline manager says, no, 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 you don't have time to go watch that video. I can't even afford to lose you for 5 minutes. So don't bother with that. Go do this instead. Your training is not going to be all that effective because they're not even going to watch it. Oops. If the frontline manager doesn't then reinforce the idea of whatever was in your video, or maybe the frontline manager doesn't even agree with what was in that video. When the frontline management team doesn't support whatever training you're putting out into the universe, into the organization, the end users aren't going to avail themselves of that training. Hey, Adam sent this great 15-minute e-learning module out about fill in the blank. You don't have time for that. Don't worry about that. Do this instead. Watch that video or do that e-learning from Adam on your own time. Well, they ain't ever going to do my thing. So leadership really has to support the training to ensure that it happens. You have to make sure it's aligned with what the frontline leaders think is actually needed to support their teams. It has to be aligned in they have to buy into what it is you're doing. Frankly, they have to understand what it is you're doing. So this hard truth really speaks to those frontline managers. You as a trainer need to go out and build those relationships. You need to be the one to take the initiative to go sit down with them and say, hey, I want to have a cup of coffee, and I want to understand, what are the blockers? What are the challenges that you face? What are the opportunities you have to level up your team? What is an area where your team already does something great? We can magnify that. What's something that you wish your team would start doing or stop doing? You can have those sorts of conversations with those frontline managers. When you develop the training, you can go back to those frontline managers and build them into your rollout plan. So maybe you're attending their daily huddle and, hey, Adam's here for a couple minutes. He's got a great new e-learning module. I want you all to take it, carve out the time, take the first 15 minutes of your shift and do that e-learning module. Adam's here to tell us a little bit about it. Adam, take it away. If you get buy-in from that frontline manager and they bring you into their team huddle, oh man, you're going to see your adoption rates go through the roof. If you work with those frontline managers, they're going to follow up and say, hey, did you do Adam's 15-minute e-learning? Oh, you didn't have a chance to do it yet? Oh, what's preventing you from doing it? Oh, you haven't got round to it? Well, hey, I need you to get round to it. So follow up with me by end of day tomorrow and let me know what your thoughts were about Adam's e-learning. Again, your adoption rates are going to go through the roof. The same thing applies at the senior level. The same thing applies at the senior level. So we just talked about frontline managers. As a frontline trainer, if you don't care anything about strategic stuff, as long as you're working with those frontline managers, you're going to see a natural benefit to improving the trainings you plan, build, and deliver, and getting more people to complete the trainings just by dealing with the frontline managers, frontline leadership. Senior leaders are the same way. When you start dipping your toe in those strategic waters, hey, Senior VP, what are the things that keep you up at night? Hey, Senior VP, where do you see your team being, or where do you want your team to be in 5 years? Hey, Senior VP, what are the market trends you see changing and developing in your area of responsibility? I keep saying Senior VP, maybe it's CEO, maybe it's director, maybe it's head of, maybe it's owner, whatever, doesn't matter. But that senior leadership group, all of these same things apply. You need to align your training to the strategic vision of the organization, period, full stop. If you don't align your training to the strategic vision of the organization, you're just wasting time. And as a trainer, you're positioning yourself down at that tactical day-to-day level. Here's how you fill out the form. Here's how you complete the process. Here's how you do this task. I mean, okay, but you're not connecting it to how completing that task, filling out that form, doing that procedure, how that moves the business forward. That in and of itself makes your training way more interesting. In and of itself, that is going to, the more I started doing that, the more I started realizing, hey, if I explain how this ties to this big picture thing. The eyes lighting up, the people, oh yeah, I got it, writing that down, all of a sudden really increased. So you have to align your training to the high level strategy of the organization. Maybe you can't get time with those senior leaders. You've got to get your leadership to go have those meetings and then bring that information back to you. The same thing applies that if the senior leadership is like, hey, listen, it's output, output, output. We need more items shipped. We need more widgets made. We need the teams to just do more, do more, do more. Mandatory overtime. Everybody's 24/7 on call. We just got to do more, 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 more. The odds of them taking 15 minutes to complete Adam's e-learning is going to go way down. So you as a trainer need to get that information from the senior leader that, hey, for the next 3 weeks, we are on 24/7 around the clock production over everything else mindset. We just got to produce at a very high level, and we don't have any time for any disruptions for anything, let alone for training. Cool. So that tells me for the next 3 weeks, I got to figure out some different ways to get learning out into the organization because I'm not taking 3 weeks off. And I got to figure out different ways to do it to get something going that's not going to distract the organization from operations. So maybe I'll lean a little more heavily into utilizing team huddles. Maybe I'll spend some more time walking the floor. Maybe I'll go out and, do some work on the floor so I can get some more experience and make my next round of training more relevant, real, and relatable and authentic, and help them get a little bit more work done, which makes the senior leader happy. You see all these pieces fit together. So a lot of words to say. If leadership doesn't support the training, it's going to be a waste of time, either because you plan, build, and deliver a training that isn't relevant. You don't understand the needs of the frontline management team, and you aren't partnering with them and getting their support and buy-in, and you're possibly either building trainings that don't apply or conflict with day-to-day needs, let alone getting their support to help take the training, and support the adoption of completing the training. And then at the senior leadership level, the more you're disassociated from the strategy of the organization and making sure your learning is tied to moving the business forwards, the more divorced you are on that, the lower level your training is going to feel, the more boring it's going to become, and the less impact you're going to have on the top line business metrics, which is why we do training in the first place. Help people move the business forwards. All right. Hopefully everybody out in NBT Nation is having a great Sunday here. We're talking about the hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer. Hard truth number 9 through 12. We just did 9 and 10. We're about to do number 11 after I have some more creator fuel here. If you're finding this useful and effective, leave me a chat. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all those different things will be great. That'll help us to continue producing content like this. Learning how to quickly analyze, design, and communicate proposals is more important than you realize. Hard truth number 11. Learning how to quickly analyze, design, communicate proposals is way more important than you realize as a frontline trainer. I got to tell you, this was something that as I figured out how to quickly partner with whoever's requesting the training, get a sense of what they're trying to accomplish, really dial in some key areas of concern and some key opportunities, really understand the desired state, have my networks in place of all the people I could go to talk to gather anecdotal evidence, let alone a process in place to go collect the data and be able to quickly sift through that. And then quickly come up with a design or a plan. Hey, you asked for this. Here's the outcome you're trying to achieve. Here's the population the training's for. This is how I'm going to go about doing it. I'm going to do a virtual session, an in-person session. I'm going to back it up with micro explainer videos, whatever. I'm going to roll this out in 3 successive waves of training. Here's how I'm going to track it. Here's how I'm going to measure success. What do you think? The more I figured out, hey, if I can do that and standardize it, streamline it, make it a repeatable process, all sorts of good things are going to start to happen. All sorts of good things. So before we even get to like the strategic big picture stuff, just from a trainer to trainer perspective, just think about how much time you spend putting together a quick or putting together a design or a plan for the training based off the request you've gotten. It takes time, right? So if you can reduce that amount of time, guess what? You have more time to go do. You want to reduce that planning time, the design time. Um, Being able to quickly communicate your plan in such a way that your stakeholder buys in and they can clearly see the vision of how what you're going to do in the classroom solves their problem or gets them to their desired end state or gives them the solution that they want and gets them the result. When they can clearly, quickly scan a little graph or scan a table or see a couple quick bullet points and they're like, yep, I got it. Well, guess what? You are now going to spend, you are going to more quickly get into, yep, that sounds great, get to work. And now you get to go do your thing, right? As opposed to you have a meeting and you go through this big presentation and you try to go through and share all the details. And then I'm going to share this slide and it's going to have this information on it. And I'm going to do a blended, scaffolded, chunked, asynchronous, blah, 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 blah. I guarantee you that stakeholder, you're going to get into a lot more debate over the mechanics of the training instead of just quickly putting together a quick high level overview summary of this is how I plan to do this thing, give you the result you want, measure it. This is the roadmap. There's no detail, but it's at least enough executive summary that they get the idea and they can sign off on it. Or you could do what's going to happen next. The other big benefit to this, when you do it effectively, now you're going to have a collaborative discussion. Hey, that really sounds like a great plan. Have we thought about, I like this, but I don't know that it touches on that subject as much as I'd like. Hey, you know what? Now that you mention it, I didn't even think about an effective plan, a design, uh, an effective roadmap that you quickly put together leads to that collaborative partnership much more quickly. And that's what you want so desperately, because that's going to help you get more buy-in from the last hard truth. If you're going back to your shareholder with, here's a quick roadmap, I put this together, and they're like, yeah. And now you're going back and forth in a partnership. Oh man, all sorts of great stuff starts happening. And you get into ideas and different approaches and the people that you need to bring in. And oh, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, we should probably include that other team over there. And you know what? Let's see how this pilot program goes. But if it works out great, we'll take it to the 5 other plants, whatever. You want to get to that collaborative moment. And you do that by quickly analyzing the situation, coming up with this training response, communicating that proposal effectively. The more you do that as a frontline trainer, the more opportunities you're going to get. The more people are going to say, hey, it's easy to work with Adam. And listen, I've made this mistake before. I know when I really got into a pretty heavy full-time training role, people would say, hey, I'd like you to talk to you about training. And it would be this 45-minute convoluted all over the place discussion with no clear action items, no clear to-dos. Hey, maybe we could do this. Hey, maybe we could do that. Well, is it gonna have participation? Is there gonna be hands-on activities? It just wasn't effective. As soon as I started going back with just a quick snapshot, a quick executive summary, a quick overview, the more they got the gist and let me go do my thing. And of course, there's a whole process to that. Of course, you're going to have more conversations, make sure you're on the right track. But the getting those proposals back and flexing that and refining and building and flexing that muscle as a frontline trainer, super important. Every bit as important as your classroom management. You can be the world's greatest classroom manager or e-learning instructional designer. If you can't have effective discussions on these topics with your stakeholders and then quickly get back and analyze what's really going on, pull together the data, come up with a preliminary design for your session, and then communicate it back, man, you are going to waste a lot of time. And then certainly from a strategic level, you start doing that regularly, especially with some executives, and you're going to really spark some creative conversations. And again, now you're going to be talking about learning impacting the organization as opposed to being down in the weeds of the delivery or the mechanics of how the learning takes place. And it's way more effective when you're talking at the big picture level. So learn how to do that. If you grab your copy of The Hard Truths of Becoming No Boring Trainer, I've got some example designs in there. You could also use the NBT session planning tool. Now that's really more about building a session, like the actual agenda and of the session, but you can use that as a basis for a design that you could take back to a stakeholder. Hey, here's my roadmap of how I'm going to do the session. And then over time, you just start paring that down to truly be a design, not a session roadmap. So there you go. Learning how to quickly analyze, design, communicate proposals, more important than you think. And then the last one for today, hard truth number 12. Understanding your organization is more valuable than knowing the difference between synchronous and asynchronous learning. Understanding your organization is more valuable than knowing all the proper learning science terms, cognitive overload, and Kirkpatrick's model, Bloom's taxonomy, chunking and scaffolding, and don't get it twisted. Learning science is critically important. Understanding how adults learn and expanding your knowledge as a trainer of not just presenting information, conducting a training session, helping people learn, guiding them to be able to remember, apply the information. That's important. Knowing how adults actually learn, also important, without a doubt. So I don't want to undersell that. However, having said all that, sometimes I think in the world of corporate training, we really overcomplicate things. We really, all that learning science, super important and valuable, and you should know all that stuff. But if we lose sight of how your organization actually works, how it functions, where are the areas of opportunity to improve the organization, where are the areas where there's friction in the organization, who are the key players in your organization, which team in your organization drives revenue, which team in your organization is an expense center, how do your teams communicate back and forth, what is the level of collaboration between all the various teams? Does everybody get along and continuously work together to come to a better solution? Or is there open friction and warfare? Understanding how to get things done inside the organization. Hey, if I need to get supplies ordered, I just go right over there and boom, it's done. No muss, no fuss. Understanding how budgets work. Understanding the budget pressures. Now, again, if you're a frontline trainer or you're just a subject matter expert who gets the tap on the shoulder, hey, could you put together a training? I'm not suggesting you go down some insane rabbit hole of research to answer all the questions I just posed. You need to build that training. And that's why you follow NBT, right? So that you can plan, build, and develop, or plan, build, and deliver really quickly. So I'm not suggesting you get stuck on all those things I just talked about. But as a frontline trainer, the more you lean into those practical pieces, the more effective your sessions become because you can execute on planning them, delivering them, following up on them, getting people to travel in, understanding when you need to do a virtual session because maybe budgets are a little tighter, maybe understanding that this team is a revenue driver. So we have to approach the training support from through that lens. Whereas this team is more of an expense center. So we got to be a little bit more crafty in how we roll out training. This is an operations heavy group. And, we can't pull them offline, or it's a shift system. Maybe it's a manufacturing facility with 3 shifts. Well, you can't offer training at 10 and 2. You're not going to hit all the shifts. And now you're asking people to come in early, and now you got an overtime hit. And again, you got to understand all these things as a trainer, even if you don't do it full time, even if you're just a subject matter expert who trains every once in a while. Maybe you're an SME who trains every once in a while, and by understanding the organization, where are the friction points? You can tailor your message to acknowledge those friction points. Even if your training is sort of not really related to wherever the bottleneck or the friction is, but you can at least address it. You can at least reference it and acknowledge it. If you're a subject matter expert and you know who the people in the organization are who are really good at this thing, now you can tell your audience, hey, outside of this training room, I would also recommend you go talk to Bob, Sally, and Mary because they're really great at this topic. Go get some extra support and guidance from them. Or maybe you invite Bob, Sally, and Mary to come participate in your training. So all of that to say, your ability to understand your organization in the short term is more important than knowing all the fancy adult learning theories. Over time, you should learn all the fancy adult learning theories and all the adult learning science. Yes, you should learn all that. But in the short term, really lean into understanding the way your organization eats, sleeps, and breathes, and lean into how your organization functions, because that's going to help influence those trainings that you put out there. You're putting out an e-learning, and you can really make that a far more effective e-learning module just by really understanding your organization. So there you have it, my friends. It is a beautiful Sunday afternoon here. Very Sunday, but very windy. And there you have it. There are the next series of 4 hard-hitting hard truths for becoming a no boring trainer. Things I wish I knew when I first started out. I've collected all these into a work called The Hard Truths of Becoming No Boring Trainer. You can download that at noboringtraining.com. It's available there, and for less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can download that. It's 60 pages, 20 hard truths, 15 infographics, tons and tons of practical advice, graphics, pictures, charts, tables, all of those different things. So get your copy today of The Hard Truths of Becoming No Boring Trainer at noboringtraining.com. In the meantime, though, these are the hard truths, the strategic learning hard truths. Not all training needs to be instructor-led classroom style. If leadership doesn't support training, it's going to be a waste of time. Learning how to quickly analyze, design, communicate proposals is far more important than you realize. And understanding your organization is more valuable than remembering the difference between synchronous and asynchronous learning. As I said at the top of this presentation, today's NBT Live, you, as a frontline trainer, these 4 specific hard truths are going to help you think at a more strategic level. Even if you just do training once in a while, even if you don't even really care about strategic learning, you're going to have way more effective sessions by learning and understanding these four hard truths. Then, if you want to make a jump from being a frontline trainer into learning leadership, and you want to partner more with the leadership of your organization, and you want to approach learning as a strategic tool to help people grow and develop and move the business forward and impact revenue, profit, efficiency, net promoter score, talent retention. These four hard truths are going to start pushing you down that pathway. Strategic learning is really a whole nother topic for a whole nother ebook, a whole nother series of MBT Lives. But these four will start you kind of thinking that way. At the bare minimum, they're going to make your sessions way more interesting and effective. So there you have it, MBT Nation. Those are the hard truths 9 through 12. Which was your most interesting? Which one shocked you the most? Which one do you agree with? Which one maybe do you not agree with? Leave me some comments down below. Be sure to visit noboringtraining.com for all sorts of resources, including the download of The Hard Truth of Becoming No Boring Trainer. Like, comment, subscribe, all of the important things. Thanks for joining me here on a Sunday morning pop-up live. Hopefully, MBT Nation, you're having a great day. Thanks so much. We'll talk soon.